urgent manhunt tonight in Florida swamplands as authorities search for the boyfriend of Gabby Petito, already named a person of interest in her disappearance and not seen in a week. And this mysterious image sent to the sheriff's office of a man appearing to fit his description, captured by a wildlife camera, as the FBI shares grim news late today, confirming the remains found in Wyoming are that of Petito. President Biden on the world stage today, a high-stakes first speech as president to the United Nations General Assembly at a pivotal moment, both at home and abroad.
We stand, in my view, at an inflection point in history.
The president calling for competition, not conflict, and calling on all nations to stand together in the fight against COVID-19 and climate change. So what about the messages from the world's other superpowers? Border backlash as thousands of migrants remain gathered at the U.S.-Mexico border in Del Rio, Texas. The growing concerns about the treatment they're facing and what federal authorities are doing to bring the shocking situation under control. The White House calling images of Border Patrol on horseback confronting migrants on the Rio Grande horrific. The new headline involving the one-shot Johnson & Johnson vaccine, as the company says a second dose increases protection. And with an FDA decision on Pfizer booster shots and who should get them expected as early as tomorrow. An average of 1,400 Americans still dying every day. We visit the front lines of America's opioid epidemic and a controversial strategy to help users. Clean needles delivered to drug users, as well as the drug that can reverse an overdose. It's called harm reduction, and we take a closer look at how it works and who it's helping. And dream big. Cynthia Erivo, the Grammy, Emmy, and Tony Award-winning actress, producer, and singer-songwriter, is now also the author of a new children's book. Her message to children everywhere tonight.
Be bold, be brave, believe in yourself, believe in the dreams that you have, and if anyone tells you otherwise, keep moving forward.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Lindsay Davis. Thank you so much for streaming with us. Work together, avoid a new Cold War, and fight the borderless climate crisis. President Biden used his first speech to the UN General Assembly today to pitch his vision for America's place in the world and confront doubts about America's global leadership. During his in-person speech at the United Nations in New York, Biden called for global unity to end the pandemic, calling this moment one of extraordinary pain and possibility. Biden touted ending America's longest war and his desire to begin a new era of relentless diplomacy. He did not, however, mention the current diplomatic tension with France or adversary China by name. A short time later, China's president, in a taped address, called for leaders to pursue dialogue and inclusiveness over confrontation and exclusion. Many other global leaders also spoke today, and despite his vaccination status, Brazil's President Bolsonaro was also permitted to speak. Our chief White House correspondent, Cecilia Vega, leads us off tonight.
Facing growing frustration from America's allies, tonight President Biden is trying to mend fences, laughing at the White House with British Prime Minister Boris Johnson. Earlier at the UN, the president trying to convince world leaders that after 4 years of America first, America is now back.
Our security, our prosperity, and our very freedoms are interconnected, in my view, as never before. And so, I believe we must work together as never before.
An olive branch extended after tension with several top allies after America's chaotic withdrawal in Afghanistan.
We've ended 20 years of conflict in Afghanistan. And as we close this period of relentless war, we're opening a new era of relentless diplomacy. U.S. military power must be our tool of last resort, not our first.
The president calling for a new era of unity to fight COVID, noting the U.S. has shipped more than 160 million doses of vaccine to other countries.
A dose of hope direct from the American people, and importantly, no strings attached.
He also urged the world to come together to combat climate change.
The scientists and experts are telling us that we're fast approaching a point of no return in a literal sense.
The president noting areas of friction with Iran and North Korea, but also sending this message to rivals like Russia and China.
We are not seeking a new Cold War or a world divided into rigid blocs. The United States is ready to work with any nation that steps up and pursues peaceful resolution to shared challenges.
And that really kind of encompasses his theme of unity and working together that he talked about today. Cecilia Vega joins us now back at the White House. President Biden meeting there tonight with British Prime Minister Boris Johnson. We know the alliances are still in place, but there are some bruises there in some of those relationships.
Yeah, exactly, Lindsay. And the White House knows that the president has a lot of work to do. They're hoping some of these face-to-face meetings back here at the White House might actually help some of this. But look, the really big one right now, France. France remains livid over this nuclear-powered submarine deal with Australia. They feel like they were blindsided on that one. President Biden was asked today how he'll repair relations there. His response, relations are great. Lindsay, relations aren't actually great. France is so mad they recalled an ambassador to the United States over this one. The French foreign minister today called this a stab in the back. Lindsay, the White House says they're still trying to schedule that phone call between Macron and Biden. It's supposed to happen in coming days.
And the UN gathering taking on a really different feel this year because of COVID, with meetings that would normally happen here in New York now happening back at the White House. So what's on tap for tomorrow and the days ahead?
Well, the president, as you said, he is back. He just got back a little bit ago, but he's got actually something big on his agenda tomorrow, and it's this COVID-19 summit. He's really looking to get world leaders on the same page to unify around fighting COVID, bringing in the private sector, bringing in nonprofits. We're really talking about vaccine distribution to economically disadvantaged countries, the developing world. That's going to be a big one. But he also has more meetings on the books. He had Johnson from the UK today and Australia's prime minister. Looking ahead to later in the week, Lindsay, he's going to be meeting with the prime ministers of Japan and India. So the White House knows that he's got a lot of work to do when it comes to convincing these allies that these relationships, that he's committed to them, and that, as he says, America is back.
Cecilia Vega reporting in for us from the White House. Thanks so much, Cecilia. Now to the latest on another possible weapon in the fight against COVID-19. Johnson & Johnson, the only drug maker authorized to offer a single-shot vaccine in the U.S., now says a second dose significantly increases the level of protection. They've submitted the data to the FDA. At the same time, a decision on Pfizer booster shots and who should get them could come as early as tomorrow. Here's ABC's Eva Pilgrim.
Tonight, promising news for the 14 million Americans who got the Johnson & Johnson one shot. The company reports that new data shows a second shot significantly increases protection.
The single shot is still showing incredible protection. Immunity is not waning, but that additional shot could help.
Giving a second shot 2 months after the first boosted protection against symptomatic disease to 94%, almost identical to the peak protection seen in Pfizer and Moderna. And that second J&J shot offered 100% protection against severe disease. Regulators will also review data showing a Johnson & Johnson booster given 6 months after the first dose produced even higher antibody levels, as much as 12 times the initial level.
We have a growing body of evidence that a second shot is going to be important. Now it's going to be up to the FDA to figure out when and how that happens.
The Johnson & Johnson news coming on the eve of an FDA decision and a critical CDC meeting where they will decide the fate of Pfizer boosters for millions of Americans, including people over 65 and those at high risk from health conditions or jobs on the front lines. And new hope for parents, too. 28 million children between the ages of 5 and 11 could be eligible for the Pfizer vaccine as early as Halloween.
I would imagine we're talking at a matter of weeks, possibly by the end of the month, the beginning of next month, because I know the FDA really wants to do it correctly, but they want to do it quickly.
It comes as the number of Americans in hospitals is starting to dip, but 10 states are still reporting a record number of hospitalizations, and 6 states have 10% or less of their ICU beds available. Alabama reporting more deaths in 2020 than births for the first time in its history.
We are seeing a decrease in the number of patients that are in the hospital, but unfortunately it's not because all of them are getting better and going home to their families. These patients are dying.
In Idaho, former nurse Natalie Rise and her mother did not get vaccinated, and both wound up hospitalized with COVID. But Natalie didn't survive. Her brother says the 46-year-old mother was influenced by misinformation about the vaccine.
Natalie, I believe, fell into the negative social media. But at the end of the day, we have all these doctors and professionals pleading with us, basically begging us to get this vaccination. And the people who are telling us not to get it didn't pass high school science.
Natalie's brother now taking care of her 10-year-old twins with special needs.
Eva Pilgrim joins us now. And Eva, Dr. Fauci has said that we could see boosters from both Moderna and Johnson & Johnson in the coming weeks, and a decision on Pfizer's booster even sooner.
Yeah, we could see a green light on Pfizer's booster by the end of the week. And Dr. Fauci has said we could see a decision about Moderna and Johnson & Johnson boosters in 2 to 3 weeks. Lindsay?
Eva Pilgrim, thanks so much. As the president stood on the world stage today, his administration continues to face pressure to get the crisis at our southern border under control. This is thousands of Haitians wanting a better life await their fate. Will they be deported, or will they be allowed to stay? ABC's Kenneth Moulton is in Texas for us tonight.
Tonight, as federal authorities work to ramp up mass deportations, the Biden administration struggling to contain the surge on the Texas border. Roughly 8,000 men, women, and children, mostly Haitian, encampments under that Del Rio bridge. Thousands have already been sent back to their home countries by the U.S. But tonight, this has become a political battle, too. Today, Republican Governor Greg Abbott on the ground.
The Biden administration believes that they can process those remaining migrants by the end of the week. Do you believe that?
They have shown no capability of being able to process all of these migrants by the end of this week. The only thing that they've shown is an incapability of dealing with this crisis.
On Capitol Hill, Republican senators pressing the Secretary of Homeland Security.
How many people have been returned? How many people are being detained? How many people have been dispersed to all points around America?
Senator, I would be pleased to provide you with that data.
I want them now. Why don't you have that information now?
Senator, I do not have that.
And tonight, amid questions over images the White House called horrific, DHS now launching an investigation into these images, showing Border Patrol agents on horses, confronting migrants as they enter Texas from Mexico. Tonight, President Biden reacting to those chaotic scenes.
We will get it under control.
The union representing Border Patrol agents saying that's their training.
Kenneth Moulton on the ground for us in Del Rio. And Kenneth, you just mentioned a DHS investigation into those images of Border Patrol on horseback. Do you have any more reporting on any steps they've taken to try to prevent another scenario like that?
Well, Lindsay, sources tell us that agents are still patrolling this border on horseback like they've always done. But DHS says it now has agency monitors on the ground here, making sure that those agents follow the policy. Lindsay?
Kenneth Moulton, our thanks to you. And we are joined now by Democratic Congressman Henry Cuellar of Texas, whose district includes a long stretch along the southern border. Congressman Cuellar, thanks so much for coming back on the show.
Thank you so much.
So first, I want to just get your reaction to these images that we've been seeing of Border Patrol agents on horseback confronting migrants on the Rio Grande. The White House has called these images horrific, and Customs and Border Protection says that they are investigating the circumstances. What's your reaction to these images?
Well, keep in mind that the Border Patrol has had folks using horses. Border Patrol does not have whips or lassos. I think some of the images we saw were the reins that are used on the horse. And again, if there was a problem, yes, it should be investigated. But just keep in mind that the horses have been used by Border Patrol for many years.
Regardless of the outcome of this particular investigation, is the use of horseback patrols appropriate in controlling migrants, or should that be stopped? I know you said that they've been used for years. The optics, though, even though they don't potentially have whips or lassos, it seems that they were using perhaps those reins in that way. Is that disconcerting for you?
Well, certainly, look, we want to make sure that every migrant is treated with respect and dignity. I'm sure Border Patrol is going to take a look at what steps should be taken on that. They use horseback horses for, again, patrolling the border because of the terrain that they have. This is the first time we've seen something like this. And keep in mind, we're seeing thousands of individuals are coming in, and Border Patrol, what are they supposed to do? Just let people come in? Their job is to patrol the border, but again, making sure that we treat people with that respect and dignity.
You've been critical of the Biden administration's handling of migrants arriving at the border since the start of the year. Do you think that they missed warning signs of this latest surge on these Haitian migrants? And could they have done more to prepare agents in the Del Rio area?
Absolutely. They've lost they haven't seen some of those warning signs. Some of them came up in December 11th, because I remember I talked to one of the transition teams about this. These warning signs have been in for a long time. And of course, lately, those warning signs have been coming in. If we have intel that there are large numbers of people from Haiti that are either flying in from Cuba, Ecuador, or wherever they're coming in, Venezuela as tourists, and then asking for asylums, and we see large numbers, yes, that should have told us that we have to prepare, and we got to work with Mexico, because if we play defense on the 1 yard line, then we're going to continue seeing images like we're seeing right now.
You've also argued that the Biden administration has contributed to the perception that the border is open and that they haven't been responsive to border officials and communities warning about greater migrant surges. So in your view, what should they be doing differently? I know you just mentioned playing defense on the 1 yard line. How could they be more effective?
Well, look, first of all, you have to follow the law. The law says that, let's take people from Haiti. Does it grant somebody asylum because a president got assassinated or they had an earthquake or you have violence? No, the asylum law doesn't cover that. So you allow the people in that are supposed to come in under the asylum law, but the folks that are not allowed in, then you have to send them back. That's what the law calls. You know, when people say I'm critical of the administration, I'm not. All I'm saying is you cannot just listen to the immigration activists. You got to listen to the border communities. And I can tell you right now that the border communities, the people that I represent, are frustrated because they see a border that's open. For anybody that says that the border is closed, then they're not looking at the images that we're seeing right now.
The DHS is now conducting deportation operations of some of these Haitian migrants. What do you say to the critics of the Biden administration who say that doing so is the same sort of harsh immigration enforcement we saw under the Trump administration?
I asked them to look at what President Obama and Secretary Jay Johnson did. They followed the law. They treated the migrants with respect and dignity. But if the law says you have to be sent back, they were sent back. And you know this. I mean, President Obama followed the law where he actually deported more people than President Trump did. What President Trump, he perverted certain things. He separated kids from families and mothers. That is wrong. But again, you can follow the law, and that's what we need to do, just like President Obama and Secretary Jay Johnson did.
On immigration reform, Democrats have tried to include action on Dreamers in the current budget process, but that looks like it won't pass the rules in the Senate. So is it likely that just nothing will get done on this issue or any other immigration reform in Congress anytime soon?
Well, you know, it's disappointing. I was hoping that we would have been able to get something done under the reconciliation and get it done, whether it was Dreamers, a guest worker plan, or even a pathway to citizenship. That's the way we could have done it with 50 votes. Otherwise, we got to get 10 extra Republicans to get to the 60 votes. The last time we had some immigration reform was in 1986, bipartisan, a Republican President Reagan and a Democratic Congress. It was done. That was the last time. And I certainly want to see it in a bipartisan way. I was hoping, if nothing at all, that we would have done it in reconciliation. But the parliamentarian, she gave her word already or ruling on this.
What about any other investments to handle the processing and security needs at the border?
Well, you know, certainly one of the things we need to do is we need to continue looking at the pull factors and the push factors. We got to work with Central America and Mexico to make sure that they help control the number of people coming in. Otherwise, we play defense on the 1 yard line. In the immigration, there's the P of policy and the P of politics. The P of policy needs to be done better under the administration. The P of politics, it's not good for Democrats. What we're seeing, what I'm hearing from my constituents is they don't like this chaos, this open borders perception or reality. So they have to do a much better job when it comes to the P of policy and the P of politics.
Congressman Henry Cuellar of Texas, we thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
An autopsy report has confirmed that missing remains found in Wyoming do, in fact, belong to Gabby Petito. Petito was just 22 years old. Meanwhile, on the other coast of the country, police continue to search for her boyfriend, Brian Laundrie. ABC's Trevor Ault brings us the latest.
Tonight, the FBI confirming a body found in Wyoming's Grand Tetons is Gabby Petito. The cause of death still pending final autopsy results, but the coroner finding this is a homicide. a cross of riverbed stones now marking the site where Gabby was found. Today in Florida, investigators poring over alligator and snake-infested marshland, renewing the manhunt for Gabby's boyfriend, Brian Laundrie. Drones flying overhead as ATVs and canine units weave through that 25,000-acre nature reserve where Laundrie's family told officials he may be.
Terrain's very difficult. Essentially, 75% of it's underwater.
And 500 miles away, an Okaloosa County trail camera capturing this image Monday. The sheriff not ruling out it could be Brian Laundrie, but so far they've searched the area and found nothing.
I love the van.
Laundrie and Petito had been on a cross-country road trip. Brian returning home to Florida without her, but never reporting her missing. Now authorities facing growing scrutiny over how the sole person of interest in Gabby's disappearance was able to vanish himself.
From the beginning, this has been a tragedy of errors. You didn't have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to search through the swamp. Where were the cops? They should have surveilled it.
While investigators raided the Laundrie family home Monday, police have stressed Brian is a person of interest but not a suspect because until now, there was no crime. And the lawyer for the Laundrie family advised them not to talk to authorities. And also under fire, the officers in Utah who responded to a fight between the couple during their road trip last month. The police report says Gabby tried to slap Brian. He pushed her away, then she scratched him in the face, the officers separating them.
What was it you were attempting to accomplish by slapping?
I was trying to get him to stop telling me something.
But the witness who called 911 said Brian was the aggressor.
We drove by and the gentleman was slapping the girl. He was slapping her? Yes.
Trevor Ault joins us now from Florida. Trevor, we were supposed to hear from the attorney for Brian Laundrie's family today. What happened with that press conference?
Well, Lindsay, as you know, this attorney has been the mouthpiece for the Laundrie family, both speaking publicly and with police. He's been advising them not to speak with investigators for the entirety of the Gabby Petito investigation. And as those investigators were in the process of raiding the Laundrie family home yesterday, he announced that he was going to be holding a press conference this afternoon. But late last night, he decided to scrap those plans. And he tells us that he made that decision after he had a conversation with the FBI. And there's been no rescheduled press conference since then. He did, however, after it was determined that the body found in Wyoming is Gabby Petito, he released a very brief statement that said simply, "May Gabby rest in peace." And we have, Lindsay, also heard from the attorney who is representing the family of Gabby Petito. He says that they will also have a statement when Gabby is home. Lindsay?
Trevor, thanks so much for the latest in that update. We appreciate it. And when we come back, thousands of families forced to flee as new volcanic threats continue at a popular tourist spot in Europe. The defense now has the case in the R. Kelly trial. How will they defend some of the allegations leveled against him? But up next, a city giving out syringes so that people can use drugs safely. It's called harm reduction. Could this be the way of the future? Stay with us.
With so much at stake, so much on the line, more Americans turn here than any place else. ABC News World News Tonight with David Muir, America's #1 most watched newscast, now streaming on ABC News Live.
Admit it, these days, what you need to know
seems to change just about every day.
What is it that you really want to know, need to know?
To help you not just get through your day,
but to make the most of it. Feel smarter.
Feel better.
Feel happier.
Well, how about a third hour of Good Morning America?
GMA 3, what you need to know. Now streaming on ABC News Live.
It's all about you.
Robin Roberts, George Stephanopoulos, Michael Strahan. Wake up with America's #1 most watched morning show. ABC's
Good Morning America.
The world may feel out of your control, but your happiness doesn't have to be. Learn the secrets to happiness. Listen to the 10% Happier podcast, free on Apple Podcasts.
Tomorrow morning, start the day with the stars of the Wonder Years. Wake up with wonder and a big smile. Tomorrow on Good Morning America. Now streaming on ABC News Live. 2020. True crime. Cinematic. Real-life drama. Stunning. The unthinkable. Follow the clues. The Hunt. True crime. 2020. Now streaming on ABC News Live. This is what being live is all about. This is ABC News Live.
All right, we're gonna move back. Let's move back.
We're surrounded by people
Squeezing into this bomb shelter.
We're on an urgent delivery run.
Not afraid to go there.
So my question, Mr. President, what are you so afraid of?
Breaking news, live events.
This is the moment.
Streaming straight to you, anytime, anywhere.
You just met one friend right here.
You're watching ABC News Live. Thanks for streaming with us.
It was an extraordinary story.
A computer salesman was supposed to report to prison to begin a 17-year sentence.
They let him turn himself into jail with no escort.
No one thought he would run.
How do you evade capture for 25 years? How do you do that?
Now, join the search, following the U.S. Marshals as they uncover new leads in a global manhunt. Can you help catch this fugitive?
Have you seen this man?
Have you seen this man?
Have you seen this man? Listen and join the all-new hunt wherever you get your podcasts.
Take a look at these Marines in full uniform rescuing a car outside of Arlington. This all happened outside of Arlington Cemetery after a downpour trapped people in their car. The Marines were heading home after a funeral when they spotted the driver in danger and helped out until police arrived. Now to the drug crisis in America and a practice known as harm reduction. Advocates say the hard truth is simply that many people who abuse drugs likely won't stop. So they try to make drug use safer by offering clean needles and life-saving Narcan. Now Rhode Island is taking harm reduction to a new, some might say, radical level, becoming the first state to offer sanctioned spaces for people to use illegal drugs. ABC's Phil Lipoff reports.
So this is where you keep the supplies?
Yes, absolutely. This is our supply.
On Providence's south side, outreach worker Oz Lugo prepares for another busy day on the front lines of Rhode Island's opioid epidemic. But he's not providing the kind of help you might think.
These are the needles you hand out. These are used.
It's controversial, but Oz says it's working. He and his team are actually helping people administer their illegal drugs, but with clean needles, supplies, and the overdose reversal drug Narcan. It's a practice known as harm reduction, and demand for it has exploded during the pandemic.
You see, we're getting more people, and we're collecting more.
His group, ACO, serves about 240 people, and in June distributed close to 34,000 clean needles.
I think what's happening here is we get a lot of people that exchange for a larger group.
Oz and his colleague Vanessa invited us to make home deliveries with them.
They give us a phone number so that way we can get in contact with them and let them know when we're there, when we're, going by, or when we're leaving and when we get there.
Why is it so important that you guys exist? As far as like HIV and hepatitis C, those numbers have been dropping, and I think a lot of it has to do within our drug injection users.
At the first stop, we meet a 26-year-old who wants us to call him Sam. He's been using heroin for 8 years.
Have you tried before to stop?
I have, and I've been to many sober houses, many programs, courts, the whole 9 yards. I've tried once, quit for a couple weeks, maybe a month. I couldn't kick it. I'm right back on it.
Yeah, but at least
I have clean needles, so I don't potentially get infectious disease.
A hard reality for so many, like Zoe at our second stop. The mother of two, an IV heroin user, tells us she got hepatitis from dirty needles. The 29-year-old comes from a family struggling with addiction.
Knowing at 7 years old what sniffing Percocet was, watching my mom go to rehab at 13 and her not being at my cheerleading competitions. I was a great athlete in high school. This was not the road that everyone expected I was gonna go down.
She says she wants to stop using, but right now, because of her drug use, she isn't able to be with her two young children.
I grew up watching my parents like that, and I don't want them to ever see me like that.
But this work gets a lot of pushback because, as Oz and Vanessa point out, harm reduction isn't primarily about getting people sober. It's about keeping them alive. People like Flocka, a hardcore drug user.
How important is this place to you?
Extremely important.
Why?
Because I know that I can get rigs for free. Because if I can't get it for free, I'm not breaking my 20 or my 40 or my dope or my fat or my crack or my coke to get a bag of sets. I will take a set and bleach it and pray to God that I don't get another illness.
So you pass this stuff out to other people on the street?
Yeah, me as well.
And you as well? Mm-hmm. Keeping people safe?
Trying.
Research shows harm reduction methods are effective. Needle exchanges alone are associated with a 50% drop in new HIV and hepatitis C cases. And the Biden administration supports harm reduction. The American Rescue Plan provides $30 million to support those services across the country. But Rhode Island is going a step further. Needle exchange programs and handing out clean supplies to those who use drugs so they can do it safely has been going on for decades. We're here in downtown Providence because Rhode Island is getting ready to lead the nation by opening this country's first ever overdose prevention site. In July, Rhode Island passed House Bill 5245, which will establish a 2-year pilot program starting March 2022. This will allow people who inject drugs to bring their substances into a facility with medical staff who monitor for signs of distress and can then intervene. The move comes as drug overdose deaths in America skyrocketed last year. Provisional data from the CDC showing more than 93,000 people died. That's nearly 30% higher than expected. 384 of them here in Rhode Island.
Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, people are isolated, under a ton of stress, and so this is something that provides that support, provides that environment to use more safely and to stay alive.
Hi, welcome.
Celine Means is with an advocacy group for people who use drugs, Rye Cares. He helped design a gallery space simulating an injection site. I think right off the bat, people will notice when they come in here that it's probably not what they were expecting to see.
Absolutely.
This looks like a doctor's office.
Absolutely, because that's what these sites are like.
Celine takes us over to the space where users would inject their drugs.
At each site, it's going to be cleaned beforehand. There's going to be a place where you can put your sharps and hand sanitizer. The mirror here is so that you can better sort of aim for your arms, as well as the nurses can monitor how somebody's doing.
People say it's enabling. Mm-hmm. You're going to put a mirror there so someone can aim better? Well, what's the purpose of that?
These substances exist, and it's either they die on the street or they don't die here.
These supervised injection sites have the overwhelming support of state and city leaders in Rhode Island, including the mayor of Providence. But attempts to open these sites across the country have failed in the past. San Francisco, Seattle, New York, Philadelphia have all tried to set them up in recent years with no success.
My district overwhelmingly asked me to vote against it. They felt it's wrong for the government to condone the use of drugs.
Michael Chippendale represents a rural district a few towns over from Providence. He wants to see more focus on breaking the cycle of addiction.
That person with the addiction use disorder is going to absolutely continue to chase that, regardless of whether the site's nearby or the site's not nearby, or whether they were revived with Narcan 4 times in the last month.
But researchers like Brandon Marshall of Brown University's School of Public Health say the benefits of these sites outweigh the perceived shortcomings. He points to the Insight facility in Vancouver, Canada, where there hasn't been a single overdose death on its premises since it opened 18 years ago.
We found that overdose numbers went down by 35% after the facility opened. We found that access to treatment went up. People were less likely to use drugs in public. There was less injection-related litter and discarded syringes, and crime in the area actually went down.
The people who drafted the legislation say they hope they won't have to battle the so-called not in my backyard mentality.
Decisions on where these injection sites will be are largely determined by where the need is. And our hope is once we start showing the success of this, other communities will actually want to bring them into areas where they have problems.
One spot under consideration, near Providence's West End, home to a tent city. This man tells us harm reduction services, specifically access to Narcan, have made all the difference between life and death.
It's very important because otherwise, people will be running around grabbing things out of the trash, just randomly picking needles up because not everybody has the means to get syringes.
He says he's overdosed at least 4 times. His wife has had to revive him.
I'm grateful, very grateful for Narcan.
She also struggles with addiction.
I've been homeless off now for over 20 years, but now I'm like, it's hard to stay sober living in the situation I am.
Understood.
You know, it's hard.
Hi, it's Vanessa with the Exchange. I'm outside.
The hope for those committed to harm reduction is to keep users like Zoe, Flocka, Tiffany, and Sam alive, to give them the chance to one day achieve sobriety, if they choose to pursue it. I hope that if you ever choose to do it again, that it works for you next time.
Oh, next time when I quit, I ain't going back. After this, I'm done.
Phil Lipoff, ABC News, Providence, Rhode Island.
Our thanks to Phil for that. Still ahead here on Prime, she's a Grammy, Emmy, Tony-winning actress, and now she's adding another title to her list of accomplishments. Our conversation with Cynthia Erivo coming up. And the economic ripples as more child care workers quit. We take a look by the numbers. But first, do you remember? It's remember, not remember, right? It's the 21st night of September. Come on, you know the song. Well, it made sense to make this the tweet of the day.
All right, here we go. You ready? Let's do it.
Yes, it's the show America wants and America needs right now.
This is What Would You Do? Let's go. How are you?
How cute. Yeah. So what will you be watching Saturdays on ABC News Live?
What would you do?
Hey, I guess I just found out.
The What Would You Do Marathon, 12 to 6 Eastern, every Saturday on ABC News Live.
My favorite show.
This is what being live is all about. This is ABC News Live.
All right, we're gonna move back. Let's move back.
We're surrounded by people squeezing into this bomb shelter.
We're on an urgent delivery run.
Not afraid to go there.
So my question, Mr. President, what are you so afraid of?
Breaking news, live events.
This is the moment.
Streaming straight to you, anytime, anywhere.
You just met one friend right here.
You're watching ABC News Live. Thanks for streaming with us.
Admit it. These days, what you need to know
seems to change just about every day.
What is it that you really want to know, need to know?
To help you not just get through your day,
but to make the most of it. Feel smarter.
Feel better.
Feel happier.
Well, how about a third hour of Good Morning America?
GMA 3, what you need to know. Now streaming on ABC News Live.
It's all about you.
Assault on the Capitol, the ABC News original, exclusively on Hulu, now streaming. With so much at stake, so much on the line, more Americans turn here than any place else. ABC News World News Tonight with David Muir, America's #1 most watched newscast, now streaming on ABC News Live.
The world may feel out of your control, but your happiness doesn't have to be. Learn the secrets to happiness. Listen to the 10% Happier podcast, free on Apple Podcasts.
Robin Roberts, George Stephanopoulos, Michael Strahan. Wake up with America's #1 most watched morning show. ABC's
Good Morning America.
Tomorrow morning, start the day with the stars of the Wonder Years. Wake up with wonder and a big smile. Tomorrow on Good Morning America.
Welcome back, everyone. We've been reporting on labor shortages across America, what some are calling the Great Resignation. Now, child care workers are leaving their jobs in particularly high numbers, and this is sure to have a major ripple effect throughout our economy. We take a look by the numbers. The child care industry is down more than 125,000 workers nationwide. That's more than a 10% drop from pre-pandemic levels, according to the Labor Department. Just since June, more than 10,000 child care workers have left the industry, many taking jobs with increasing wages. One survey found that 1 in 3 childcare workers say they're considering quitting or closing their family childcare center in the next year. That could be because $25,460 per year is the median pay for this work, or $12.24 an hour, according to the Labor Department. And many understandably say the model is simply broken. An average family with at least one child under the age of 5 would need to devote 13% of their income to pay for childcare, which is simply unaffordable for so many, particularly low-income single mothers. And help does not seem to be forthcoming. For example, less than 20% of children eligible for one of the largest federal assistance programs actually receives that funding. And we still have lots to get to here on Prime tonight. Why Jay-Z's Rock Nation is suing the Kansas City Police Department. And news tonight on the man who recorded this hard-to-watch video of the LAPD beating Rodney King just weeks after buying a camcorder. But first, a look at our top trending stories on ABCNews.com.
World News Now.
And America This Morning.
The best new video.
The breaking news overnight.
Emergency crews called to the town of Surfside.
U.S. airstrikes hitting targets in Iraq and Syria.
The stories people are talking about.
You don't want to shave your legs? Don't. I was going to say.
Oh my. Got it.
And what to expect in the day ahead.
ABC World News Now and America This Morning.
Starting at 2 a.m. Eastern.
Up all night to keep you up to date.
This is what being live is all about. This is ABC News Live.
All right, we're going to move back. Let's move back.
We're surrounded by people squeezing into this bomb shelter.
We're on an urgent delivery run.
Not afraid to go there.
So my question, Mr. President, what are you so afraid of?
Breaking news, live events.
This is the moment.
Streaming straight to you, anytime, anywhere.
You just met one friend right here.
You're watching ABC News Live. Thanks for streaming with us.
Now streaming on ABC News Live 2020. True crime, cinematic, real-life drama, stunning, the unthinkable. Follow the clues, The Hunt. True crime 2020. Now streaming on ABC News Live.
The most powerful stories of our time, anytime. Nightline.
Johnson & Johnson saying new data shows a second shot of its single-dose vaccine given 2 months later leads to stronger protection and says the vaccine is still working well to prevent hospitalizations. This after Pfizer announced a decreased dose of its vaccine is safe and effective for children ages 5 through 11. They tested it on more than 2,200 children, giving just a third of what's given to adults.
Based on, again, these preliminary results, side effects look good. Less fever, less chills than you see in that 16 to 25-year-old age range.
The company will request emergency use authorization for that age group at the end of the month, with shots in arms possibly by Halloween.
President Biden, in his first address to world leaders at the annual UN General Assembly, says he has no regrets on the U.S. ending the longest war, referring to the chaotic exit from Afghanistan.
And as we close this period of relentless war, we're opening a new era of relentless diplomacy, of using the power of our development aid to invest in new ways of lifting people up around the world.
Urging allies to work together to help beat COVID-19.
To fight this pandemic, we need a collective act of science and political will. We need to act now to get shots in arms as fast as possible.
He also highlighted the immediate action needed to combat climate change.
And the scientists and experts are telling us that we're fast approaching a point of no return in a literal sense. Every nation needs to bring their highest possible ambitions to the table.
After Mr. Biden spoke, the podium had to be wiped down. Some leaders, like Brazil's president, are attending UN meeting despite not being vaccinated.
George Holliday has died of complications from COVID. He recorded the Los Angeles police beating of Rodney King in March 1991. In the video, 4 white officers could be seen kicking and punching King following a traffic stop. Holliday bought the camcorder about a month earlier, once saying when you have a new piece of technology, you film anything and everything. George Holliday was 61.
R. Kelly's defense winding down in a New York City courtroom. The 54-year-old singer's defense team refuting the prosecution's depiction of a sexual predator, claiming his accusers were actually groupies attempting to take advantage of his fame. One of Kelly's former accountants testified the star would take the women and girls on shopping sprees with a backpack full of cash. Kelly's attorney told the court it's unlikely his client will take the witness stand. Closing statements from the prosecution side in the high-profile trial could begin as soon as tomorrow.
Jay-Z's philanthropic group is taking on the Kansas City Police. Team Rock, the social justice arm of the hip-hop mogul's record label Rock Nation, suing the police department. Team Rock's lawyer tells ABC News it's seeking to gain access to records that it believes could shed light on complaints filed against the investigative division and allegations of police misconduct. The filing references several allegations, including an officer charged with committing sex crimes involving a minor and 2 officers charged with assaulting an inmate.
Why is this KFC order on the hood of a police car? In Auckland, New Zealand, fast food is currently banned. All restaurants, including takeout, closed due to strict COVID lockdowns. Police pulled over the 2 men trying to enter the city after they traveled 75 miles from Hamilton, where restaurants remain open, discovering the food in the car's trunk along with $70,000 cash. Police say the pair were gang associates, now set to appear in court for breaching a health order. What became of the Colonel's chicken is unclear.
Some serious dedication to KFC there. Now to that volcano emergency. Thousands evacuated in the Canary Islands tonight after the La Palma volcano erupted. More than 150 homes have been destroyed. And tonight there's now concern about toxic gas. Our James Longman is in the Canary Islands for us tonight.
Spain's volcanic island is still roaring tonight, and now authorities are alarmed at another series of earthquakes opening up new fissures today. An unstoppable wall of lava is eating everything in its path. Superheated molten rock exploding as it hits this swimming pool, neighborhoods incinerated. This video showing lava flowing down a street. Spain's civil guard reports 7 roads are blocked. They're also trying to keep sightseers away. Spain's military emergency unit deployed to the island to help residents affected. A further 2,000 evacuations from La Palma, which is just off the coast of North Africa, mean 7,000 have had to flee their homes, some in tears, with only an hour's notice to take everything they could. Lifelong resident Lorena packing up as though she may not return, taking her fridge and the mattresses. We're very nervous, she says. We evacuated yesterday and took some clothes, and now we're back for other essentials. In an area reliant on agriculture, 300 farms turned to ash. Rescue workers escorting the animals to safety.
I've never seen anything like this. We're just a few hundred feet from the actual volcano. It's just, one of the fissures is just there. I'm not sure if you can tell, but we are being rained on with ash. It's just extraordinary. If I show you down here, this is the stuff that's coming down. At least 180 homes have now been destroyed in an area equivalent to the size of 240 football fields. But officials today warned it could double in size as the volcano rumbles on.
Right now, we feel powerless because you can't do anything against a volcano. We have a business, a house, our belongings. This is all we have.
All this moving towards the ocean, and when the 1800-degree lava hits the water, thermal shocks may release clouds of toxic gas and acid rain. Another natural disaster for this scarred island to battle.
James Longman joins us now from the Canary Islands. James, we can see that active volcano right over your shoulder, and it sounds like there are now new concerns about the increasing damage being done by that lava.
Yeah, that's right, Lindsay. It is still shooting lava and hot ash right up here into the night sky. But what officials were worried about is now happening. Now, there are two streams of lava, basically larger streams coming out of that volcano. One of them is heading down towards the ocean. That's good. The other one, though, is heading inland, and that is not where it needs to go because it's going to reach another village, possibly tomorrow. That village will then just be destroyed. And so more destruction ahead for the people of La Palma. I should say I spoke to a volcanologist today, and he told me that this is actually a relatively young volcano, which means that there's this kind of activity is kind of expected. It's the kind of activity you would expect with a volcano of this age. It forms the island, and actually it means that the area here is very fertile. When you drive around La Palma, it's full of banana plantations. It's really wonderful, actually. So when nature gives, like it has given here, it is wonderful to see, but nature can also take away, and that is what we're watching happen.
Right, it giveth and it taketh away. James Longman, our thanks to you. Stay safe. Cynthia Erivo, the Grammy, Emmy, and Tony award-winning actress, producer, and singer-songwriter, is adding one more title to her already incredible list of achievements: author. Her new children's book, Remember to Dream a Beret, will be out next week. It's a story of a little girl whose mother teaches her to dream bigger than she could imagine. Welcome to the show, Cynthia. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. Hello.
So you sing, you act, you produce, and so it really should come to no surprise to all of us that, yes, you also write. What inspired you to write a children's book?
Well, when I was first asked to write this book a while ago, I said no because I am a glutton for punishment, and I want to make sure that whatever comes from me comes genuinely from me, and I wanted to write it. If I wasn't able to write it, I was going to do it. But then one day I must have been preparing for a meeting or something, and the idea fell into my head. It sort of fully formed, and it was the idea that I could teach children to dream bigger than they can imagine, but also fill it with all of the detail and all the nuance and all of the vivid colors that we see our dreams with, because I think that's how our dreams become reality. So this book, I sat down with my pen and my iPad and wrote each page, and it sort of came to fruition, and I'm really proud of it. It's definitely a story to teach everyone, I guess, that we can fill our dreams with all of the details that they need in order to make them real. Yeah.
And even though it is in the category of a children's book, really there's a message there for the adult readers as well. The book begins with a Beret's mother saying, "Remember to dream big, my love." Why did that message resonate with you? Why did you feel that it was so important?
Because I think it's something I've been doing my entire life, and I feel like I'm the proof that having dreams and following them and seeing them fully ends up doing pretty well. You know, I've had my dreams for as long as I can remember, and the thing I used to do, and I still do, is I write them down and I fill them with all the detail, and because I feel like when you're specific about what you're asking the universe for, it comes to you, because I think it tells the universe that you're ready for it. And so I want to keep teaching that message that everyone's dreams are valid, and the more we can believe in them, the more we can see them as fully as possible, the more real they become. And that's something I've lived by, really, yeah.
And it's worked out pretty well, all those dreams that you are now living as realities. In your author's note, you tell your reader that when someone tells you to think a little smaller, tells you to be quiet, less bold to fit in, that instead they should dream big, gargantuan dreams. I can't help but wonder if you're speaking from experience as a Black woman with big ambition.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. That message at the end is for everyone who reads this book, not just for the children. It's for the children to hear, and for the adults who are reading it to also take that message for themselves. I've been a person that has been told that the dream that they have is too big or too ambitious, or I'm thinking too far ahead of myself, and I should make myself a little bit smaller, or I'm too loud, or all of these things, too different, too this, too that, to that. And I've not allowed that to sway me from the thing that I believe that I deserve.
And specifically, what is your message to those young kids out there in particular who are told to think a little smaller, told to be quiet and be less bold?
Don't listen to that. Be bold, be brave, believe in yourself, believe in the dreams that you have, and if anyone tells you otherwise, keep moving forward. Blinkers on and move forward. Your dreams are valid, every single one of them. Doesn't matter how big they are, how small they are, every single dream you have is yours to keep, and it is valid in every single way. So just fill it with all of the vivid colors you can find, all of the details, all of the people that you want to be a part of it, all of the times that you want to do it in, all of the sunshine that you want to fill it with. And I believe that you'll live the dream and make it real.
Those blinders can certainly be very important there. You've had another dream come true recently. Last week, you released your debut solo album, Chapter 1, Verse 1. Let's listen to a short clip of your new single, The Good. This feels rather different from your work on Broadway and in the movies. What was your goal in Chapter 1, Verse 1?
Just to introduce people to me and my music. You know, I've spent a long time singing the music of others, of which I'm very proud of, singing other people's lyrics, very proud of being able to interpret the lyrics of others and the music of others to make it feel like it's my own. But it was time for me to be able to make my own music and to share what I have lived, my words, my stories with the world. So that's why I'm particularly proud of this album. It's a personal and intimate and full album of all the stories that I've experienced and the people that I've loved and lost and been around. Yeah.
And as if you did not have enough on your plate, you've started a production company called Edith's Daughter. I don't know how you have the time, but I am going to ask, what's next for you? What else, or what are some of those other big dreams that are as of yet unfulfilled?
I mean, I hope that I'm going to be able to produce a series and TV and other such things that allow other people in this space to realize their own dreams. I hope I get to introduce the world to new and wonderful performers and artists as well. Literally after this, I'm going to go and pitch something as well. So, you know, I'm hands-on and I want to be able to not just be in these projects, but create a space for other people to experience it too. Yeah.
Cynthia Erivo, we thank you so much for your time, for your insight, for coming by the show. Her new book, Remember to Dream, Abere, is out next week.
Thank you for having me.
Before we go tonight, the image of the day. Before President Biden could speak at the UN General Assembly today, the mic had to get sanitized and its cover swapped out. That's because Brazil's president, who had COVID but remains unvaccinated, spoke earlier. This is what happens when global leaders meet in a pandemic. And that is our show for this hour. Be sure to stay tuned to ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. Thanks so much for streaming with us. In the next hour, staying on top of a few things, including a closer look at the latest challenge to Roe v. Wade as the controversial new abortion law in Texas gets its first major test with 2 lawsuits filed against a doctor who admits to violating the statute. We talked to the advocacy group representing that doctor. If you're thinking of taking advantage of the hot car market and sell yours for a profit, we have a few tips. Stay with us.
It's an extraordinary story. A computer salesman was supposed to report to prison to begin a 17-year sentence.
They let him turn himself into jail with no escort.
No one thought he would run.
How do you evade capture for 25 years? How do you do that?
Now, join the search, following the U.S. Marshals as they uncover new leads in a global manhunt. Can you help catch this fugitive?
Have you seen this man?
Have you seen this man?
Have you seen this man? Listen and join the all-new Hunt wherever you get your podcasts.
The most powerful stories of our time, anytime. Nightline.
Now streaming on ABC News Live 2020. True crime, cinematic, real-life drama, stunning, the unthinkable. Follow the clues. The Hunt. True crime 2020. Now streaming on ABC News Live.
Admit it. These days, what you need to know
seems to change just about every day.
What is it that you really want to know, need to know?
To help you not just get through your day,
but to make the most of it. Feel smarter.
Feel better.
Feel happier.
Well, how about a third hour of Good Morning America?
GMA 3, what you need to know. Now streaming on ABC News Live.
It's all about you.
I know what happened, and I'm not guilty.
Why the fascination with criminal trials? Figure out what's really out there.
She revealed she had murdered his family.
I know in my heart they did this.
It's the time of suspicion. The ending's really tough.
You don't know whether truth is going to be difficult to find unless you try to find it.
This is what being live is all about. This is ABC News Live.
All right, we're gonna move back. Let's move back.
We're surrounded by people
squeezing into this bomb shelter.
We're on an urgent delivery run.
Not afraid to go there.
So my question, Mr. President, what are you so afraid of?
Breaking news, live events.
This is the moment.
Streaming straight to you, anytime, anywhere.
You just met one friend right here.
You're watching ABC News Live. Thanks for streaming with us. Hi there, I'm Lindsay Davis. Thanks so much for streaming with us. We're monitoring several developments here at ABC News at this hour. The global stakes here in New York City as President Biden steps onto the world stage to deliver his first address to the UN General Assembly as president, describing a, quote, new era of relentless diplomacy and asking for cooperation on COVID-19 as well as climate change. The president also defended his decision to end the 20-year war in Afghanistan. A disturbing new case of that mysterious illness targeting U.S. diplomats, the Havana syndrome. This time, it reportedly involves a member of the team traveling with CIA Director William Burns during a trip to India this month, who received medical attention after experiencing symptoms. A trip by Vice President Kamala Harris into Vietnam was delayed last month when several personnel complained of similar symptoms just before her arrival in Hanoi. One of 3 teenagers charged in the 2019 stabbing death of Barnard freshman Tessa Majors in a New York City park has pleaded guilty to robbery and murder charges. Luciano Lewis said he did not know Majors had been stabbed until the next morning when he recognized her as a target of their robbery. Lewis pinned the idea on a 16-year-old suspect who has pleaded not guilty. A 13-year-old also involved is already serving his sentence after a guilty plea. Now to the promising news from Johnson & Johnson today about a possible booster shot. Our Eva Pilgrim reports.
Tonight, promising news for the 14 million Americans who got the Johnson & Johnson one shot. The company reports that new data shows a second shot significantly increases protection.
The single shot is still showing incredible protection. Immunity is not waning, but that additional shot could help.
Giving a second shot 2 months after the first boosted protection against symptomatic disease to 94%, almost identical to the peak protection seen in Pfizer and Moderna. And that second J&J shot offered 100% protection against severe disease. Regulators will also review data showing a Johnson & Johnson booster given 6 months after the first dose produced even higher antibody levels, as much as 12 times the initial level.
We have a growing body of evidence that a second shot is going to be important. Now it's going to be up to the FDA to figure out when and how that happens.
The Johnson & Johnson news coming on the eve of an FDA decision and a critical CDC meeting where they will decide the fate of Pfizer boosters for millions of Americans, including people over 65 and those at high risk from health conditions or jobs on the front lines. And new hope for parents, too. 28 million children between the ages of 5 and 11 could be eligible for the Pfizer vaccine as early as Halloween.
I would imagine we're talking at a matter of weeks, possibly by the end of the month, the beginning of next month, because I know the FDA really wants to do it correctly, but they want to do it quickly.
It comes as the number of Americans in hospitals is starting to dip, but 10 states are still reporting a record number of hospitalizations, and 6 states have 10% or less of their ICU beds available. Alabama reporting more deaths in 2020 than births for the first time in its history.
We are seeing a decrease in the number of patients that are in the hospital, but unfortunately, it's not because all of them are getting better and going home to their families. These patients are dying.
In Idaho, former nurse Natalie Rise and her mother did not get vaccinated, and both wound up hospitalized with COVID. But Natalie didn't survive. Her brother says the 46-year-old mother was influenced by misinformation about the vaccine.
Natalie, I believe, fell into the negative social media. But at the end of the day, we have all these doctors and professionals pleading with us, basically begging us to get this vaccination. And the people who are telling us not to get it didn't pass high school science.
Natalie's brother now taking care of her 10-year-old twins with special needs.
Our thanks to Eva for that. Now to the first major test of that controversial new abortion law in Texas. 2 lawsuits have been filed against an abortion doctor who admits to violating the new statute, which effectively outlaws almost all abortions in Texas beyond 6 weeks. Here's ABC's Megan Tevrizian.
A Texas doctor who admits defying the state's new abortion law is now facing 2 lawsuits, which are the first known challenges under the constitutional law. Dr. Alan Braid opened the door to the lawsuits when he told the Washington Post, "I acted because I had a duty of care to this patient, as I do for all patients, and because she has a fundamental right to receive this care." The 2 plaintiffs are disbarred attorneys from out of state, and neither claim to be anti-abortion. One was previously convicted of tax fraud in Arkansas.
In some ways, this is a plaintiff who makes perfect sense in light of the way the law is drafted. No connection to the issue, no connection to the parties, no connection, as far as we can tell from the complaint, to Texas at all, and yet may well have the ability, the way the law is drafted, to go to court and to have the court actually hear his case.
The new law bans abortions once a heartbeat can be detected in the embryo, which is typically 6 weeks before many women know they're pregnant. The law calls for private citizens to report anyone who helps a woman get an abortion and rewards them with $10,000 for reporting the crime. A former attorney from Chicago says he wants to prove the law is unconstitutional. He filed the second lawsuit against Dr. Braid.
I suspect we will see more of these lawsuits to come. And as I read the Texas law, there's nothing improper about these suits.
The Supreme Court's Roe v. Wade decision in 1973 gave women the right to choose an abortion up to generally around 24 weeks. Dr. Braid writing, "I believe abortion is an essential part of health care. I have spent the past 50 years treating and helping patients. I can't just sit back and watch us return to 1972.
This Texas prohibition on abortion after about 6 weeks is clearly unconstitutional, right? No one disputes that. Even Texas admits the law is unconstitutional under Roe versus Wade and Planned Parenthood versus Casey. The question is when this U.S. Supreme Court has before it this law or a law like it, whether it will change the constitutional law of abortion.
Our thanks to Megan. And we're now joined by Nancy Northup, the president and CEO of the Center for Reproductive Rights, a legal advocacy group that's representing Dr. Alan Braid and his clinics and fighting the Texas law in the courts. Thank you so much for joining us, Nancy.
Thank you.
So Dr. Braid recently wrote in an op-ed something to the effect of it's 1972 all over again. Would you agree?
Well, absolutely. Right now in Texas, if you are any more than 6 weeks pregnant, you can't get access to abortion care. And most people don't know they're pregnant at 6 weeks. So by and large, 85–90% of people in Texas are being turned away at clinics who are constitutionally entitled to have this care. So indeed, Dr. Braid is right in saying he feels like he's back in 1972 before Roe versus Wade.
The Texas law lets anyone sue an abortion provider, and now more than 2 weeks in, we have the first known lawsuits coming from out-of-state disbarred attorneys who don't even claim to be anti-abortion. What does that tell you about the law and how it's constructed?
Well, the really maddening and underhanded thing about this law is it does allow absolutely anybody to sue a provider or a person that even, drives someone to an abortion clinic or loans them money to cover their care. And it can be anybody. The people who sued in these first 2 lawsuits are from out of state. They don't have any connection to San Antonio, to the doctor, to the patient, to anything. And you know what? There could be limitless numbers of them. There's no limit to how many people can sue a provider for providing an abortion to a woman as here. And so it absolutely shows that this law is designed to harass and to really make it impossible to practice medicine.
These cases and others to come will presumably take a while to work their way through the courts. So in the meantime, do you think that women will remain barred from getting abortion services? And will we see providers actually paying those $10,000 fines?
Well, let's hope not. Let's hope that courts resolve any of these lawsuits like these ones that were just brought quickly. I mean, we're also waiting on the Department of Justice has sued Texas. There'll be an injunction hearing on that on October 1st. But meanwhile, and this is something that, Dr. Braid has made very clear, is that he's been providing health care for almost 50 years to women. And now he has so few options to offer them. And he finds it just heartbreaking that they are having to go out of state, something that many do not have the means to do. Even if the finances are there, they don't have the means to take the time off work, buy childcare for their children. And so really, it's a situation in Texas right now that is falling hardest on women of color, on low-income women, people living, from wage to wage. And so really, it is time for the courts to step in, or for Congress. And in fact, they're going to take a vote on the Women's Health Protection Act in the House this week.
And you say that this Texas law is simply unconstitutional, and we just heard the same from our ABC News contributor, Kate Shaw. But with a conservative U.S. Supreme Court and given the unusual construction of this law, would you say that Roe v. Wade may still be on shaky ground?
Well, unfortunately, the Supreme Court has decided to hear a case out of Mississippi, which we represent the last abortion clinic in the state of Mississippi, and Mississippi has asked for Roe versus Wade to be overturned. So there is heightened concern from this case in Mississippi in the Supreme Court, what's happening in Texas right now. But the reality is the American public wants abortion to be safe and accessible and legal. And 1 in 4 women in the United States makes the decision to end a pregnancy in her lifetime. So the public wants to see this be accessible, and we're going to see what the court does. But, 48 years of really strong precedent says that they need to uphold the law as it is.
Paint us a picture of what your networks are seeing on the ground in Texas. Have women stopped at this moment getting abortion services? If so, what does that look like for them?
Well, so the clinics are open to provide abortions to those people who are under 6 weeks pregnant. So it is important, if you live in Texas, do call your local clinic. But they can only see people at 6 weeks, and otherwise they need to refer people out of state. So women are driving 9 hours to Oklahoma. Some are going as far as New York and Illinois and California. Some are going to New Mexico. And that is really, really difficult. So that is what's happening right now. People are still going to the clinics, or some are just skipping that because they know they're more than 6 weeks, and they know right now they can't get an abortion in the state of Texas.
Lastly, what would you say to critics who say, well, look, if you must get an abortion, then do it before the 6 weeks? Why is that difficult in some cases?
Most people don't know they're pregnant by 6 weeks. And so it is completely unreasonable to suggest that that is a time period in which somebody can have an abortion. And it's also unreasonable in the sense that people do want time to consider their decisions. And right now what's happening, Dr. Braid talks about women coming in who are taking pregnancy tests every day. He had a patient who stockpiled 20 so she could take it every day because she was so afraid that she would become pregnant. She didn't even know if she was, but that she would be 6 weeks too soon. Nobody should be rushed to make medical decisions or important life decisions. And that is what Texas has imposed right now on women in that state.
Nancy Northup, we thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Now to a development in a criminal case that we've been following for some time now. Back in June, I went to see Kevin Strickland, a 62-year-old Missouri man who spent more than 4 decades in prison for a 1978 triple murder, a crime he says he did not commit. I would like to get a sense of what it does to someone to be behind bars for 43 years.
I think I've been destroyed.
The Jackson County Prosecutor's Office, the same office that originally tried Strickland, announced that it now believes Strickland is innocent after a key witness and only victim to survive the attack recanted her story. They even offered this apology back in May.
So to Mr. Strickland, I am profoundly sorry for the harm that has come to you.
But that did not mean that freedom for Strickland, because the Missouri Supreme Court denied a petition to release him and the governor refused to pardon him. We are joined tonight by Tricia Rojo Bushnell, executive director of the Midwest Innocence Project and a lawyer working to exonerate Strickland. Good to talk to you again, Tricia. Last month, the Jackson County prosecutor used a new state law to ask for an evidentiary hearing for Strickland, where they plan to argue for his exoneration. What does this mean for his case?
What we hope this means is that he will have a hearing, the prosecutor will have a hearing where she will present the evidence of his innocence and a court will rule to let him come home. But of course, this is a brand new law. It's the first instance it will have been used. Previously, prosecutors didn't have this ability to overturn a conviction in Missouri. And so there are a lot of questions about how the law is applied and what the roles of everyone, including both the prosecutor and attorney general, are. So it's our hope that we will have a hearing. It's currently set for October 5th and 6th. But there are a lot of questions and a lot of sort of opportunities for the attorney general, who is still fighting this case to keep Mr. Strickland convicted, to try to sort of push that hearing back.
And if that hearing is to happen in October, I know that you're hopeful and you're optimistic, but what do you feel realistically would be the outcome?
I mean, I think any court, if they actually are presented with the evidence of Mr. Strickland's innocence, would exonerate him. We feel that very confidently. Unfortunately, in the past 42 years, even though all the evidence of his innocence has been available, no court has ever heard it. So, you know, we are optimistic. It's just a matter of getting in front of that judge and letting them see the evidence.
How unusual is it for prosecutors to ask for the release of someone that their own office put behind bars, especially in the state of Missouri?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone would say that it's typical, right? Certainly around the country, there are these new formations of what are called conviction integrity units, where prosecutors are now starting to examine old cases in their offices and seeing whether or not they hold, if they are valid convictions. But in Missouri, that's brand new. So like I said, this is the first time that any prosecutor will be filing under this law. Jackson County, which is where Mr. Strickland is convicted, is one of the few counties that is working to have a conviction integrity unit. The others are in St. Louis City and St. Louis County, but no one has yet been exonerated that way in Missouri. And so this is all new ground.
How is Mr. Strickland doing? Is he hopeful that he might finally be released from prison?
I think he's hopeful, but I think he recognizes that he has been fighting this longer than any of us can imagine. I mean, for some context, I wasn't even born when Mr. Strickland was convicted, and that's how long he has been waiting and fighting, mainly on his own. I think what makes him most hopeful is that so many people are now with him, so many people hear him and recognize his voice and his innocence, but he knows that it's been decades of fighting, and while he's hopeful, I don't think he is taking any possible delay or other impediment for granted.
When we spoke to Mr. Strickland and his brother back in June, there was a hope that he might get released in time to see his ailing mother. Since then, she has passed away. What's his reaction been to that news?
I think it was devastating. I think it's hard for any of us to imagine what that would be like. It was over 100 days after the prosecutor had declared Mr. Strickland was innocent, and yet he was still there and was unable to see his mother. I think for some additional context, the court had actually originally set a hearing on this case to be held on September 2nd with a decision on the 3rd. Her funeral was on the 4th. But because the attorney general stepped in and fought it, that hearing has been delayed till October, and that's why he was unable to attend her funeral. So I think it's just yet more evidence of the inhumanity of a system that shouldn't put so many barriers in front of justice. We know that him not being there wasn't justice, and it's been incredibly hard for him.
Please keep us posted, and we will continue to follow up with a lot of interest. We're watching this case. Tricia Rojo Bushnell, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
We move on now to that nationwide car shortage. Demand so high right now that some people are selling their cars back to dealerships for more money than the original cost. So is now the best time to sell the family minivan that's sitting in your driveway? Transportation correspondent Gio Benitez has the story.
Cars are said to lose value the moment you drive them off the lot. But this morning, customers telling us some cars are being sold back to dealerships for more than their original cost.
When I left the dealership, it almost felt like I had just gotten in on an under-the-table deal or something. I can remember calling my boyfriend and being like, this feels too good to be true.
Evan Maybe bought his car last year, and just 15 months later, the dealership called and offered to buy it back.
And the process was incredibly quick. An appraiser looked at it, offered me the high end of what I was expecting, which ended up making me recoup all of the money that I'd spent the year previous, plus some. And I left with a check for $2,000 more than I had.
Car dealership manager Bill Brunner says this is happening a lot. With the massive car shortage still underway, local dealerships are doing everything they can to ride it out.
Has that changed your business model at all?
I mean, it definitely has. One of the things that we're looking at is being able to buy used cars from customers who may have extra cars, in the family.
And that's interesting because before this happened, you were selling a lot of new cars. Now you're really focusing on, okay, we need to get inventory so that we can sell these cars to people.
Exactly.
So it's a good time to sell your car.
We're able to give them a little more for their used car. Most of these customers have taken care of their cars better than the average car. So it's less for us to put that car back in the condition to resell to the next customer.
There is no automaker that has not been hindered in some way, shape, or form when it comes to sales because they just simply have no inventory.
If somebody's thinking about possibly selling their car, what should they do first?
First thing is clean up the car a little bit. Find out how that car stands against all the other cars that are like that out in the marketplace, and we're able to give them the best price that way.
But experts say this surge in prices can't last forever. So bottom line, take advantage of this while you can, especially if you were thinking about selling your car anyway. Lindsay?
Gio, some helpful advice there. Thank you. Still to come, the parents of a deceased British teen and the wife of a U.S. intelligence officer settle a contentious civil dispute. We have all the details. And the dog helping first responders on the front lines.
It's an extraordinary story.
A computer salesman was supposed to report to prison to begin a 17-year sentence.
They let him turn himself into jail with no escort.
No one thought he would run.
How do you evade capture for 25 years? How do you do that?
Now, join the search, following the U.S. Marshals as they uncover new leads in a global manhunt. Can you help catch this fugitive?
Have you seen this man?
Have you seen this man?
Have you seen this man? Listen and join the all-new hunt wherever you get your podcast.
The most powerful stories of our time, anytime. Nightline.
Now streaming on ABC News Live 2020. True crime, cinematic, real-life drama, stunning, the unthinkable. Follow the clues. The Hunt. True crime 2020. Now streaming on ABC News Live.
Admit it. These days, what you need to know
seems to change just about every day.
What is it that you really want to know, need to know?
To help you not just get through your day,
but to make the most of it. Feel smarter.
Feel better.
Feel happier.
Well, how about a third hour of Good Morning America?
GMA 3, what you need to know. Now streaming on ABC News Live. It's all about you.
All right, here we go. You ready? Let's do it.
Yes, it's the show America wants and America needs right now.
This is What Would You Do? Let's go. How are you?
How cute. Yeah. So what will you be watching Saturdays on ABC News Live?
What would you do?
Hey, I guess I just found out.
The What Would You Do Marathon, 12 to 6 Eastern, every Saturday on ABC News Live.
My favorite show.
This is what being live is all about. This is ABC News Live.
All right, we're going to move back. Let's move back.
We're surrounded by people
squeezing into this bomb shelter.
We're on an urgent delivery run.
Not afraid to go there.
So my question, Mr. President, what are you so afraid of?
Breaking news, live events.
This is the moment.
Streaming straight to you, anytime, anywhere.
You just met one friend right here.
You're watching ABC News Live. Thanks for streaming with us. Welcome back. We are tracking several international headlines at this hour. A gas station cashier in Germany was fatally shot after an argument with a customer who refused to wear a COVID-19 mask. Authorities say the suspect, who is now in custody, left the station and later returned wearing a face covering before pulling it down and then pulling out a gun. He reportedly told German prosecutors he felt, quote, overwhelmed by the pandemic and its regulations. The parents of Harry Dunn, the British teenager who was on his motorcycle while he was killed in a 2019 wrong-way crash, say that they have settled a civil lawsuit filed in the U.S. with the American driver behind the wheel. That woman, Anne Sekulis, is the wife of a U.S. intelligence officer and was granted diplomatic immunity and left England. British authorities have filed criminal charges, but the U.S. government rejected the extradition request. Details of the civil resolution were not released. The criminal case will continue. And it's official. Guinness World Record says 2 Japanese sisters, Umeno Sumiyama and Kaomi Kodama, are now the world's oldest living identical twins at 107 years old, an announcement that happened to coincide with a national holiday in Japan that celebrates Japanese elders. And finally, with so many first responders braving the flames of the severe, seemingly unrelenting wildfire season, one 4-legged friend is providing some much-needed comfort and support along the California fire lines. ABC's Will Gans reports.
Do I sleep? Not really. At night, I think about how I can help the firefighters.
Kareth is a 3-year-old golden retriever on a mission to comfort first responders.
Firefighter wives and husbands and kids who thank me for seeing pictures and videos of their family members that I put on social media at base camps. It's just so cool.
Like here at the Calder Fire Base Camp with this group in South Lake Tahoe, or at the Dixie Fire Base Camp in Chico, California.
It's so heartwarming. It makes me teary, and it makes me feel so proud about what I'm doing.
Kareth's human, Carmen, says the pup has always loved firefighters, and they love her back.
This one firefighter I saw, she came up, she said, "Is that Kareth?" And I said, "Yes." And she just went like this, and she just started crying. Said, "I'm so happy to see her and to finally meet her."
Kareth and Carmen take their jobs seriously.
They're the helpers. They're the ones who help they're the ones who help us, and they don't ask for help, and they need to ask for help.
What might be hard to say to a human, Kareth seems to just understand.
Kareth loves firefighters, so I decided that I would launch a nonprofit so I could help Kareth help firefighters. We created a certification, a whole process so people could become first responder therapy dogs because there's such a need. And now we have, I think we have 12 teams.
And on the rare occasions when Carmen and Kareth have a day off,
are you able to sleep at all? Is Kareth able to get to the beach like I know she loves going so much?
Actually, we did go to the beach. We went up to the Calder Fire twice, and in between I took her out to Carmel, which is her favorite beach.
Man's best friend never disappoints. Our thanks to Will for that. And that is our show for tonight. Be sure to stay tuned to ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. I'm Lindsay Davis. Thank you so much for streaming with us. Have a great night.
It was an extraordinary story.
A computer salesman was